Hajj is not about hitting stones with stones. Hajj is not about going 7 times around a stone building. Hajj is also not just for Muslims. Assalamu alaikum. Let's have a look at the Hajj of the Quran, of Islam. The Islam that Nabi Muhammad as a Rasul followed, the only Islam that he knew and the only Islam that he propagated. Let's talk about that Hajj. Let's start with a very simple question. When Allah said, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ, people, humanity are to do Hajj of al-Bayt for Allah. And he said, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ, and with the Hajj invite people, humanity. Then who stopped non-Muslims from doing the Hajj? Who added to a very simple command from Allah, which said that the Hajj was not just for Muslims, but for an-nas, for humanity, for people? Who came up with this rule? While we're at it, let's ask another question. Who said that the Quranic Hajj is to pelt stones with stones, pillars of stone that you hit with stones? Who said that this is what Allah wanted us to do when we do the Hajj? Who said that you have to go around a stone cube 7 times around, because that stone cube and the building containing toilets that it is in is the house of Allah? Who made that declaration? Was that Allah? Let's be reasonable. If we are to use the Quran as the criterion, as the Furqan, there are questions that arise when we read the Hajj of the Quran versus what we see around us, or what we see paraded around in front of us as the Hajj of Islam. Let's start off with 4 fundamental questions. What is the Quran's Hajj? What is the Islamic Hajj? What is the Hajj that appears in the Kalam of Allah that Nabi Muhammad followed? What is also al-masjid, al-haram, in which supposedly this Hajj is taking place? Why is this Hajj being done? What is the purpose behind it? Is it just a mindless ritual being done by automatons, or is there a reason, is there a purpose for it? And what are the benefits of this exercise? Is it just religious tourism, where once a year those who can afford to get to hang in the world's largest hotel so they can look down upon a small black cube? What is the actual benefit for this? Today we are going to look at one ayah, and just one ayah of the Quran, because I believe that just this one ayah is enough for any honest seeker of the Quran to see what is the Quranic/Islamic Hajj, and more importantly perhaps what it is definitely not. And if you have, by the way, come this far, I would ask you to stay until the very end, because there is a very important warning that I would like to share with you. So do stick around until the end. Let's look at this ayah in greater detail. The chapter is Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, ayah number is 196. Ayah is on the right hand side, you can see. For now, I'm going to read out the English translation done by Sahih International, just to give you a flavor of what we are meant to be taking away from this ayah, in order, I say, to justify a practice that has got nothing to do with the Islam of the Quran. We're going to take a deep look at the ayah soon, but for now, let's start with the English translation as done by Sahih International. And complete the Hajj and Umrah for Allah, but if you are prevented, then offer what can be obtained with ease of sacrificial animals. And do not shave your heads until the sacrificial animal has reached its place of slaughter. And whoever among you is ill or has an ailment of the head, making shaving necessary, must offer a ransom of fasting 3 days, or charity or sacrifice. And when you are secure, then whoever performs Umrah during the Hajj months, followed by Hajj, offers what can be obtained with ease of sacrificial animals. And whoever cannot find or afford such an animal, then a fast of 3 days during Hajj, and of 7 when you have returned home. Those are 10 complete days. This is for those whose family is not in the area of al-masjid, al-haram. And fear Allah, and know that Allah is severe in penalty. What did you get out of this translation? What did you understand from it? Does this translation, does this traditional translation, inspired by the tafsir, inspired by the Israeliyat and all sorts of things that have happened from a traditional perspective, do they even translate this ayah properly? Do they even do justice to the terms of this ayah that in Quran Allah uses the same way? Are they being honest? I argue that that is not the case. So let's continue. Let's have a great detail at this one particular ayah that I contend is enough for us to understand what the Quranic Hajj is, and as I said before, what it absolutely most definitely is not. Now, having said that, let me take a little bit of a break before we get into the nitty-gritty of it. First, I think it is very wise to ask a few more questions based upon this translation that we just read out. And what I would like to do is to look at those questions, if you got better answers for them, once we have pondered on what Allah is saying in this ayah. So here are a few more questions that I think we need to ponder on. Here are some of the things that I think an honest student, a sincere student of the Quran and Islam asks and or ought to ask. So on top of the 4 questions, as in what is the Hajj, what is the al-masjid, al-haram, why are we gathering and doing this Hajj, what are the benefits of it, let me pose a few more questions. Why is this particular ayah, why is this ayah saying do Hajj and Umrah at the same time and complete the Hajj and Umrah for Allah? Why are the two coming at the same time? Question number 6. How are the non-Muslims to do Hajj? Because as we saw in the very beginning of this video, Allah clearly expects an-nas to be doing Hajj. So if those non-Muslims are to be coming and doing the Hajj, what instructions will they find for their version of the Hajj in this ayah? Question number 7. Let's be honest. Despite the fact that this ayah says clearly that whoever enters the Bayt, understood to be al-Makkah, al-Mukarramah, and the particular masjid in it, when Allah says clearly that whoever enters that Bayt will be in peace, why then do Hajis die every year? Every other year we hear of overcrowding, we hear of stampedes. Or what of the terrorist attacks that have happened in Makkah, in that building, over the centuries? Anybody who's got any interest in history knows that these things have happened and will continue to happen. So how is the Quran so insistent that whoever enters this place is in peace, will be in peace, when we know that that is not the case? Is Allah incorrect here? Question number 8. Where in this particular ayah, where is the actual Arabic word for sacrificial animals? Where are we finding the instructions for you to go find animals and sacrifice them? Where is that particular word? I contend there's nothing like that, and we'll go through in more detail when we look at this ayah. Question number 9. As a man, I've got to ask this question. Why are we having men shave their heads? Why? And by the way, once more, did Allah forget about the women? Once more, it seems that the instructions that Allah likes to give are targeted for 49% of the humanity, just them. Again, women are forgotten. And even within the group of men, what of those poor people who don't have hair anymore? Are they meant to shave off the little bits that they have got on their sides as well? What if somebody was bald and completely, they're going through chemotherapy, for example? What are they to do in a situation like this? Did Allah once more forget something? And we now have to do the patch-up job for him. Question number 10. If one is already sick and they cannot do the Hajj, as Allah mentioned in this very same ayah, then why does Allah repeat himself and says, one who feels pain in the head? Why is that separated from one who is sick? Number 11. What is Siyam? How does that help the purpose of the Hajj? Number 12. These Siyam are to be done if one cannot find something. What is that something? Animals? Is that what Allah is talking about? Question number 13. If someone cannot do the ritual, any ritual of this Hajj properly, like for example, he couldn't run or didn't run properly between two mountains, he didn't hit a rock the right way, instead of 7 times around that cube, he only went 6 times, or maybe he went 8 times. Why is God going to punish him? And fear Allah and know that Allah is severe in penalty. Just because you could not do a certain part of ritual properly for whatever reason, why are you going to be punished for something like that? Enough with the questions, I say. Let's look at the Quran. Let's read that ayah in detail. We'll start with who is the Hajj for? And the answer, as we have seen from the very beginning, is very clear, is for an-nas. Regardless of religion, Hajj is for an-nas, humanity. فيه آيات بينات مقام إبراهيم ومن دخله كان آمنا. In it are evident signs, the stature, non-physical station of Ibrahim. Just a little break. Maqam Ibrahim is not a physical place. It is the stature, it's a non-physical station. And for those who are interested in why we take maqam to be this understanding of the term, they can watch the Salah series, in which we have covered in detail the difference between maqam and muqam. Ibrahim has got a special station because he is the Imam. He is the leader of humanity. وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. Whoever enters, accepts it, attains security. وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. Hajj of the codification of Allah's rules, teachings, bayt, is a duty to Allah for all who can make the journey, intellectual or physical. وَمَنْ كَفَرْ. But as for those who refuse willingly, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah is independent of the realms of knowledge. وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. And announce with the Hajj to humanity. وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. And announce with the Hajj to humanity. They will come to you as people of authority. Rijalan, not men. We've talked a great deal about this in the Urdu series. Rijal in the Quran is not men. Rijal can be women. It can be associations. It can be authorities. It can be groups who have power, who have authority. Similarly, Nisa in the Quran is not women. Nisa could be men, could be women, could be children, could be people who are yet to come, could be things that are yet to come. But if you return to what we are seeing very clearly in the Quran, وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ, and announce with the Hajj to humanity. Let's move on to another question. What is the Hajj? Hajj, very simply put, is a gathering for discussions. It is for humanity, an-nas, as we just saw in the section before. Hajj comes from ha, jim, jim, and the understanding, the mafhum, is to discuss, to argue. To understand this point, let's consult the Quran, where we find the same term being used in 2 ayats of the Quran in relation to an argument, a logical argument that is being presented. قُلْ, declare, أَتُحَاجُّونَنَا فِي اللَّهِ. Do you argue with us about Allah? أَتُحَاجُّونَنَا, ha, jim, jim, فِي اللَّهِ, about Allah. وَهُوَ رَبُّنَا وَرَبُّكُمْ, when He is our nourishing Lord and your nourishing Lord, up until the end of the ayah. Let's look at another one. فَإِنْ حَاجُّوكَ فَقُلْ أَسْلَمْتُ وَجْهِي لِلَّهِ وَمَنْ اتَّبَعَنِي. If they argue with you, declare, I have surrendered myself, my orientation to Allah and those who follow me. فَإِنْ حَاجُّوكَ, and if they argue with you. There's no ritual that you can take away from this term at all within the same book, by the same author, by the same sender. Just not possible. Let's move on. What is the purpose of this Hajj? Why gather humanity for arguments, for discussions? Because the idea is for humanity to derive and witness benefits from this gathering. If we just look at the ayah after the ayah we've been looking at, وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ, if we just looked at the ayah after that, we get at least one reason for this Hajj. There are other benefits as well. But for now, if I just stick to that, what we are taking away is an understanding of why we are to do this Hajj. And how does this got nothing to do with the ritual that we are meant to do once a year in a specific place, in a specific location, where, as I was saying before, we have to go around the building 7 times, odd numbers, pelt stones with stones, and declare a certain point on earth to be the house of Allah, the creator of the whole universe. When Allah says, when Allah gave the command, وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ, that you announce with the Hajj to humanity, لِيَشْهَدُوا مَنَافِعَ لَهُمْ, after that He gives the reason, that they may witness, reap the benefits for themselves. لِيَشْهَدُوا مَنَافِعَ لَهُمْ, there are manafi', there are benefits, there are advantages to be had for them, that they are meant to witness themselves. Straight away, we have an answer. People are meant to experience, reap the benefits for themselves through this Hajj, and they're also expected to witness these advantages. So not only to get them, that they are going to get, but also to be witnesses for what they just received. That is the overriding reason for why we are to do Hajj, why an-nas is meant to do Hajj. Nowhere in this ayah have you seen the contention that you are to do the Hajj because it is the fifth pillar of a religion, Islam, that you are meant to undertake once in your lifetime. Nothing like that. Now I would like us to focus on that one particular ayah that I think clearly spells out what is the Hajj and what the Hajj is not. What we've talked about so far, I think this one ayah encapsulates it all in a one perfect section. But before we even do that, I think it would be very prudent of us to look at the ayah and to see what it is made up of. 2:196 is a series of conditions. Here are some of the key terms that I've highlighted that we will be talking about shortly. For example, what is al-Hajj, what's Umrah, what's Hadi, what does وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ etc. mean? We're going to talk about them soon. So I've highlighted them. But if I return to the structure, when I look at this ayah, وَأَتِمُّوا الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, that is the main statement. That is what is being told. That is what we are being advised, being commanded, instructed to carry out. At the very end, so if you start from there, come all the way to the very end, here is the reminder and here is the signature. Let's say the signature of this particular ayah. But in the middle, from here to there, we've got a series of conditions. For example, when we see فَإِنْ أُحْسِرْتُمْ, now here is a condition. Now even while we're talking about issue, a particular type of issue that might happen whilst you're doing this and this, there's a guiding principle that we're being reminded about. So no matter what, even if you're in this particular state, here is why you're there. This is the guiding principle that should guide you. And then we have got a few series of issues that are being presented. So we've got issue number one. We've got a more generic type of an issue. And within that issue as well, we've been given a specific resolution that marries up to that issue that we were looking at. After those issues have been resolved, we are being given extra instructions that are now pertinent if that set of conditions applied to you. If there was an exception to that, we are being told other commands. We are being given further instructions. In the end, before we come and conclude this ayah, we've been given a parenthetical statement. And then, as I said before, we come to the very end of the ayah, and that is where we find the signature of the ayah, and the ayah wraps itself up. I encourage you to keep this in mind, because when we look at the English translation, the English interpretation of this particular ayah, we would be doing it the same way in English as well. But if you wanted to refer back to the Arabic version, then this is the page that you want to come back to and refer. Like I said before, we're going to break down 2:196, the terms first, to make sure that we are on the same pitch in terms of what the Quran is indicating when it uses certain terms. And after that, we will look at the understanding of this ayah, putting the understanding in the series of conditions like I just mentioned before. Hajj and Umrah. So no, there are no rituals. Hajj is not a ritual. Umrah is not a ritual. Hajj we've covered before. Hajj, jim, argument, discussion, debate, munakasha. Why is it being done? It's being done for humanity. It is being done so they can witness and reap benefits for themselves. What is Umrah? Umrah is from Amar, Ta'mir, to build, prepare. I've got a few screenshots for those who do insist on taking Arabic dictionaries as their primary position or justification. I don't think that's quite the right approach, because I think the only source of the Quranic Arabic that we have is Quran itself. But I'm putting those screenshots in for those who might be interested in looking that even within the traditional Arabic sphere, even within Fusha, we do find examples of Umrah being used to talk about repair work, to fix things. So وَأَتِمُّوا الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, that is the beginning of the ayah, and those two terms that we had highlighted, we just talked about them in this particular page. But I will pose a quick short question that I did raise before as well. Why is the Hajj and Umrah being done at the same time? وَأَتِمُّوا الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ. There's no separation of time here, not that you can take away directly. It's not saying that when you have done the Hajj, you may return for an Umrah down the track, or if you have done the Umrah, then maybe there's a possibility for you to come back later in the year or 2 years from now, etc., and do the Hajj as well. There's nothing like that. Al-Hajj and Umrah are coming together. وَأَتِمُّوا الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ. As in, when you do the Al-Hajj, Al-Umrah is going side by side, along with the two are not separated. My question that I'm posing to you, that I will be answering but this is from a traditional understanding's perspective. Why are they coming at the same time? Question for you to ponder on. We're going to look at the next section of that ayah. فَإِنْ أُحْصِرْتُمْ فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنَ الْهَدِي. Istaysara is whatever is available, whatever is muyassar to you. Hadi is not an animal. It comes from huda, guidance. I don't really understand how that term, which is used throughout the Quran, to very clearly mean guidance. You know, we all talk about being al-muhtadun, al-hidayah, etc., etc. Why suddenly, in one particular ayah, we change it all the way from that grand principle, that amazing concept being given to us from Allah, towards sacrificial animals? This is not what is being talked about. Again, a question before we go on. Let's even give it to the traditional circle that yes, there are sacrificial animals that are being talked about that get sacrificed once a year in one particular place. What benefit does it get to anybody? How is that sustainable? All of those animals being slaughtered in one place once a year, how does that help humanity? You might feed poor people for a week, couple of weeks. You can freeze it up for a while. I guess nowadays you can. But how is that helping humanity? Let's continue. وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ. Halaqa is izala, is removal of something from something. So yes, from that particular mafhum's perspective, the meaning could be taken that it also means to shave off. But if we look at the mafhum, we don't stick ourselves to level 1 meaning or level 1 understanding, as I like to say, then we have to take a step back and say, well, what is the mafhum? What is the gist? What is the overall understanding, conceptualization when we talk about halaqa? And that is to remove something. And again, I've got a few examples in here. If somebody was interested, they could go have a look at to see why I understand halaqa to be izala. So Quran is using this term in its broader, more generic sense of removal and not talking about shaving heads. When we say ru'usakum, ra'as, to be the ra'as of something is to be the head of it, to control something, to govern something. If you were not to remain stuck to level 1 meanings of ru'us is to be the physical head of a person, and halaqa we're going to stick to the level 1 meaning as well, which is we are talking about shaving heads. Well, if you were to remove yourself from it and let the Quran guide you in the way it talks to the nafs of the human, the aql of the human, the fahm of the human, the understanding, the shu'ur that we have, then we are not being told to go and shave our heads. Allah does not talk about that. The intention of this message is not to talk to the body of the human, not to talk to a man. It's to talk to the nafs. Nafs that men and women have, that we are all equal, completely equal in. وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ. Halaqa is the removal. Ru'usakum is the control, is the associations that have the power of governing. Al-Hadi, once more, we talked about in the previous section, guidance, hidayah. Mahillahu, its place. One more question before we move on to the next section. Even if that is true, and I grant it to you, that yes, Allah is telling you that when you do this particular aspect, all of you, women included, because let's be honest, وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ, it includes men and women. So if men and women were both to go and shave their heads, what benefit does that get for humanity? And before I give this point completely away and move on, وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ does not take out the women. It does not say وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الرِّجَالِ, or you men. It does not say يَا أَيُّهَا الذُّكُورِ, or you men, those who got a certain body part. Allah does not differentiate, nor does He do it in this particular ayah. Command is clear. وَلَا تَحْلِقُوا رُؤُوسَكُمْ. Do not shave your heads, men and women. We don't follow this command then, if you're being honest, are we? Did once more Allah forget to give us an exception that we had to go to the men of the cloth to find an exception for? Moving on to the next section of this ayah. Adhan in the Quran is not a physical ailment. It's not a physical hurt that one might have on their body. Adhan in the Quran is a non-physical ailment or an impediment. And again, those who speak Urdu, I've talked about adhan in great detail in the Quran and the Aurat series, where we looked at how the Quran does not talk about men and women, how it does not talk to the gender at all. I've talked a great deal about this term in there, if you do speak that language. Ra'asihi, as we've talked about before, it could be himself, it could be the leader, it could be the principal. So something that is authoritative, something that is prominent, something that is in a position of, well, it's got the focus. And again, I've got an example from the Quran, because as I was saying before, I genuinely believe that the best way to understand the Quran, by the way, any literature out there as well, is to see how the author uses the same term consistently in his own work. Ru'usu amwalikum, in this particular ayah, entitled to the return of your principal. It's not talking about the head, a literal physical head of the dollars that you have. That's not what's being talked about. If we remain stuck to level 1 understanding of the Quran, well, I guess we are not ever going to quite understand the Quran properly. We're always going to be reliant on intermediaries to help break those level 1 meanings down into even simpler do this, do that lists for us to follow. That might not make sense to us, but at least they're all spelled out for children. Fidya, recompense, is how we're taking it right now. Siyam, imtina, stopping. Siyam, stopping for the sake of discipline, self-restraint. It is not exclusive to food or drink. Something I might talk about one day, but I don't normally, because I believe Siyam is a very clear-cut topic for anybody who's interested in how the Quran uses this term. And I've got an example here, which I think is pretty clear in terms of what the Siyam of the Quran is and what it is not. For example, when there's a command being given, فَقُولِي إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لِرَحْمَانِ صَوْمًا فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمِ. Behold, abstinence from speech have I vowed unto the Ar-Rahman. Abstinence from speech, sawman. Hence, I may not speak today. فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمِ. Sawman, siyam, is imtina. Yes, the mafhum I think is correct. It is stopping. It is not doing something that you might have been able to do because you're practicing self-restraint. But once more, to force it down to just one particular meaning, that of stopping from food and drink, I don't think that's doing justice to how Quran uses this particular term. I'll leave this to you to research more if you are interested. Sadaqa, yusaddiq, endorse, agreement, ittifaq. Again, one of the terms that I'd like to talk about more in the future, inshallah, along with fidya. Nusuk, cleansing activity. So once more, as we've been saying, we tend to ignore where the term is taking us. What mental picture is it painting for us in order for minds of different levels of maturity to latch onto them? But we just go and dumb them down to the level of 6-year-old kids and say, Nusuk is literally going out and doing particular activities. Go A, B, C, D. And if you are standing here, you must recite this. And if you sit down, you must do so and so. You go to the bathroom, you must go enter with this particular foot first, etc., etc. And those would be our nusuk. Or when we do ritualistic based practices of worship, then we have nusuk for that. If we stick to that level, as I was saying before, well, the Quran and the fame of the Quran, I think would be very hard to come through if you're not willing to let the Quran guide you, instead of you forcing an artificial barrier on what the Quran is telling you. So the mafhum of nusuk, the way I understand this to be, is you take away whatever is dirty about it and you leave it in a better place than it was before. Before I continue on, 2 more questions. If the person who did not do this ritual-based Hajj properly, and he is meant to do siyam of not eating or drinking for X number of days, how does humanity get benefits out of that? If one of those people, or 10 of them, or 100, or 1,000, or all 1 million people who are at Hajj, they all decide to do siyam for 3 days, 10 days, what benefits do others get from those people not eating? Question number 2. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا. Then if anybody from you was sick, we already have been told that somebody is, if somebody is being sick, they're being talked about. أَوْ بِهِ أَذًا مِنْ رَأْسِهِ. Or if they've got a hurt in their head. Why is the same thing being told to us twice? If you are a marid, if you are sick, if you've got an ailment, then you are already covered. Why have an aw as an or differentiating marid from those who have got an adhan min ra'sihi, or have got a pain or an ailment in their head? Why the two are talking about the same thing, separated by just 2 words? What's going on in there? Like I might have said before, I don't think the Quran stuffs words. Allah is not using superfluous terms in there, words in there, just to meet an arbitrary word limit imposed by an editor. If there's a word in there that you might take away in the very first instance to be a synonym or to be the same thing being repeated, why not take a step back, think about it, Have you understood this ayah properly? Have you understood this part properly or not? The next section, فَإِذَا أَمِنْتُمْ, up until the end. أَمِنْتُمْ, when you've achieved peace. تَمَتَّعَ بِالْعُمْرَةِ. Mut'a in the Quran, I find nothing sexual about it. Mut'a is taking benefit, is taking whatever advantages that you might be able to reap from a particular situation. And again, in the Quran, in the Hajj series in Urdu, we've talked a great deal about how Quran does not talk about men and women, does not differentiate between them, and also talks nothing about sex. There's no shahwa that men have from women, etc., etc. There's nothing like that. Nothing like that, so long we are willing to drop everything else and listen to what the Quran says, and not let us be prejudiced by what we have heard since we were young, or we don't let ourselves be biased by people around us who tell us things about the Quran that do not come from the Quran, that come from Israeliyat, or come from their parents, or come from their leaders, or come from an understanding of the Quran in Islam that was formulated in the 9th century Baghdad. So long we don't take away those glasses, those perspectives, we won't understand the Quran. Tilka asharatun kamila. Ashar, again, a very interesting term in the Quran. And I might have mentioned this before as well. I think the way Quran uses numbers as we understand them is very interesting. It is fascinating how we could just, I think, remain stuck at reading them literally as in 1, 2, 3, 7, etc. Or take a step back and understand why those particular terms are being used. How are they being used by the Quran? This particular one, Ashara, it's got a mafhum, it's got one mafhum, and those who are interested have got an example of how we can get the mafhum from even traditional understanding at the bottom. But it's got rich shades, so depending upon the context where you find this term or derivatives out of it, you get a specific shade of the meaning, but the mafhum is the same, which is it's a collection that's being talked about. But there's a collection of numbers, there's a collection of people, collection of certain types of things, objects, a set. That's what's being talked about. So, ya ma'shar al-jinni wal-ins, or society in close communion of the jinn and the ins. Al-masjid, al-haram, and ahl. And we're obviously talking about this particular section of the ayah. Ahl, deservant, again a term I like to go and talk about more, explore more, inshallah, God willing. Al-masjid and al-masjid al-haram. These two terms we have covered in great detail in the Salat in the Quran series, where we, based upon the Quran, established that Al-Quran's Al-Masjid has got nothing to do with the specific place, a building that's got bathrooms and toilets and carpets where only certain group of people, the Muslims, are meant to enter to go and do ritual-based practices. That is not the Al-Masjid of the Al-Quran. Al-Masjid is the place, state, occasion where Allah's rules are carried out. Al-Masjid al-Haram, then, we've covered this term in great detail in the series, is the masjid where Allah's outlawed things are kept haram. So no, there's no Makkah being talked about. There's no one particular place that's being mentioned here. This ayah is not exclusive to one little dot on earth. We're looking at the very last part of the ayah, the signature of the ayah. Taqwa, wattaqu, from waqaya, being mindful, conscious of Allah, Allah's rules, Allah's system, etc. And I'll pose this question again before we go on to the next section of this video. Are we really saying that after Allah gave you all of those instructions that we, from a traditional understanding, understood to be shaving your heads, pelting stones at stones, going 7 times around a stone building, doing fasting from food and drink, running between 2 mountains an X number of times? Are we really saying that Allah is saying after all of that, wattaqu Allah, and be fearful, as they normally say to us, and be fearful of Allah, and remember that Allah is very harsh, very severe in his punishment? Is Allah really going to punish someone if they could not run or did not run properly for whatever reason between 2 mountains of Safa and Marwa? That again, by the way, has got nothing to do with those 2 areas in Makkah. Al-Quran's Safa and Marwa are different concepts. If one did not stone the devil with stones properly, the right way, Allah is going to punish them. Is that Allah? Is that what we've reduced Allah down to? A very harsh taskmaster that is extremely stringent in how he wants things to be done his way and the only way, and if you don't do it the specific way, no matter your conditions, you're going to get punished. وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. They did not consider, they did not give due regard to Allah, the regard that he deserves. Having covered all of these key terms and having talked a little bit about the structure, What I would like to now do is to go through the mafhum of this one ayah word by word, using the structure and the terms that we have established up until now. 196. And perfect, complete the gathering for discussions to gain benefits for humanity and the preparation for it, the program of the Hajj for Allah. And if you are surrounded, stalled, not making progress, then whatever is available easy for guidance. Guiding principle of Hajj is to try to gain benefits for humanity. And do not leave your leaders until the guidance prevails, reaches its rightful place. Then if someone amongst you, the delegates, was sick or was mentally unavailable, unable to see reason, and thus cannot participate in the Hajj, then he is to A. practice discipline, leave or agree to ratify the agenda, or to cleanse his mental state. Then after you all have resolved the issue, secured peace, then whoever takes benefit from the program and the resulting gathering, then for him whatever is produced of the guidance. But if someone still didn't find it, the guidance, then for that person 3 more days of self-discipline, and 7 when, if you return to your home. That's the perfect exemplary society, which functions well despite challenges. Now that series of conditions is for one not worthy of presence within the system of Allah that forbids harmful actions, al-masjid, al-haram, and be mindful of Allah, Allah's system, and remember, be aware that His system is severe in just recompense. No animal sacrifice, no rituals, no roza, no makkah being mentioned here, and once more, Hajj not being cut down just for those people who utter the shahadatain, a term that's got nothing to do with the Quran or the Islam of Nabi Muhammad. We have ended the topic. We have talked about what people are going to talk about. But based upon the type of questions that I can anticipate coming my way, I'd like to answer some of those right now whilst I've got the chance. But before we even do that, let me put answers to the questions that I had raised for myself when I first looked at this ayah. So, what is the Hajj? Gathering for humanity to discuss the issues. What is al-masjid, al-haram? A masjid where things made haram by Allah are kept so. Just good is within. What is the reason of the Hajj? To realize benefits for humanity. What are the benefits of the Hajj? To provide a forum for topics to be discussed, decisions to be made, climate change, gun control, international politics, Russia versus Ukraine for example, epidemic responses, etc. Why is the ayah saying do Hajj and Umrah at the same time? The delegates prepare the Amir, the Hajj program, and carry it out too. How are the non-Muslims to do Hajj? By being part of the Hajj, because they are from An-Nas. Quran says whoever enters the Bayt will be in peace. Why do the Haji die every year due to overcrowding stampedes? Al-Masjid al-Haram is not a physical place as we saw in this ayah, nor is the Bayt. Whoever enters Allah's system finds peace. Where is the word for qurbani or animal sacrifice in this ayah? None. There's no qurbani, there's no sacrifice of animals being talked about at all in here. What is the need for shaving the head? No one is shaving anyone's hair in this particular ayah. None. This is not happening. And again, Allah did not forget about the women or the bald people, quite simply because the ayah is not talking about someone opening up a barber shop whilst they are on this religious vacation. If one is already sick and God mentioned it, then why does He mention pain in the head separately? Allah mentions those who cannot focus on the program or face issues from their superiors. What is Siyam and how does it help the purpose of the Hajj? Siyam is self-discipline. It's not about stopping eating or drinking. Frankly, that does nothing to do or help out humanity. These Siyam are to be done if one cannot find something. What is that something? Animals? Quranic Siyam in this ayah is for those who do not agree on programs of guidance for humanity. If someone cannot do a ritual of the Hajj properly, as in they didn't hit a rock with a rock, didn't run properly, etc., etc., why is Allah going to punish them? There are no rituals here. Whoever disrupts the gathering, hurts Allah's system, they are the ones who earn that punishment. It's not talking about those people who could not do a ritual in a specific way. Now, let's talk about some of those anticipated questions on top of the ones that I had raised myself. Question: what about the other ayat that talk about Hajj as well, and terms like Tawaf and Safa, wa Marwa and Zamzam, etc., etc.? Answer: today's focus was just one ayah. As I said, we wanted to see and clearly establish that Al-Quran's Al-Hajj is something completely different from what we see today. It is not the Hajj constructed, formalized, canonized 250 years after Nabi Muhammad's death. Safa and Marwa are not mountains. There is no Zamzam at all in the Quran, and tawaf of the Quran is not to go around 7 times a black box. Question: if you take out the Hajj, what's left? Islam is unrecognizable. Answer: Islam of the Quran and Nabi Rasul Muhammad is one thing, and the parallel religion formed by Banu Umayyah, Abbasid dynasties, that is something completely different. Which Islam you choose is your choice. Question: but Hajj is the 5th pillar of Islam. Answer: did Allah say that to you? Did He say Hajj is the 5th pillar, or that there are any pillars at all in Islam? Did He give you that list? Did He forget to give you that list? And again, certain men had to come in and construct that list on behalf of Allah. Hey, listen, I understand your concern. I had the same questions, the same reactions, the same emotions of denial and sadness. This is normal. But at the end of the day, we have to decide, are we going to be guided by the Quran or the other way around? Question: but the majority of the ulama, the ijma', all of the traditional translations, etc., they all say something completely different. Answer: there's no agreement on the definition of ijma'. None whatsoever. By the way, did you know that Allah declares majority to be wrong? There's a video in English on this very same channel that you can go watch that talks about this particular topic. Don't ever think that you will be safe by being part of the majority, or that by becoming a group, you no longer have to answer for what you do or don't do. That is not something that's going to work in front of Allah. Question: what if someone likes to do the current Hajj? She connects with Allah this way. Answer: we all do salah with Allah in our own way. And I've talked about this in the salah series. I'm no one to deny anyone anything. All I say is this: when Allah did not say, do this as a ritual, then I will not construct one in His name. I will not say that that thing that has got nothing to do with Allah or Quran or Nabi Muhammad is an Islamic thing. That is a difference that we should never ever forget about. Question: what about Eid? What about animal sacrifice? Answer: I didn't find any Eid in the Quran, nor, as I said before, is any animal sacrifice being talked about. Now, Eid is a cultural event that connects people. Diwali, Christmas, etc., etc. A lot of good people distribute food and do other acts of charity in that period as well. And as such, these actions of theirs, they do have benefits. But again, if I take a step back and say, is this what Allah asks us to do? Then the answer is very simple. Allah's deen, the source of Islam, is Al-Quran, the only Risala that Nabi Muhammad had, Rasul Muhammad had, that he followed. And because that has got nothing to do about these terms, then I cannot also say that these are religious events. Whatever they are, got nothing to do with Islam. If you have made it this far, congratulations. You're gonna be ending on a warning. And the warning is very stark. But if you listen to me so far, I'm going to ask you to not follow me. Do not follow me. Do not follow any other man either, no matter how long the beard might be. Rather, you should follow the evidence. Read the Quran. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not going to help you in front of Allah. If you took something wrong from me, I will not help you in front of Allah. But be also very careful. The man that you're following, man with the long beard and a funny hat, in a specific ritualistic way about him, he is also not going to save you. Just like you can't say, oh, Allah punish Musa because I'm just following him. You also cannot blame anybody in the last 1250 years because they misled you. It is your job to read the Quran. It is your job to come to the best understanding, to the level of understanding that you have, to the best of your capability and ability. Allah is Ahkamul Hakimin. He knows your level better than anybody. So long you are sincere to yourself, you are open-minded, you think, you consider the evidence in front of you, and then leave the results to Allah, you are fine. But don't follow me. And as a proof of why you should not follow me and others, I am going to admit one thing freely in front of you. I did this same video in Urdu about a year ago. I redid this in English now. But already in between this 11-12 months, I can see the maturity that I have had in my understanding of the Quran in these 11-12 months. It's not that whatever I was pondering before was wrong. It's that I can now see more parts of the whole interconnecting together. I can see the picture clearer now. There were words that maybe I was not going deeper into before, and now I understand them much better. I can also identify areas of improvement, areas of growth, and some of those I highlighted and talked about as I went through this particular video as well. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this for you to take encouragement. Have your own relationship with the Quran. Be humble, be honest, be sincere. Don't declare you know everything, because no one knows everything. So long you know that there's room for improvement and that you don't know everything, you're going to keep on learning. You're going to keep on getting deeper into the message of Allah. You're going to keep evolving your understanding. You're going to keep improving your connection with Allah. The more as-salah you do with Allah through the Quran, the better you become at it. The more connection you have, the better you understand His message. So if I take it back to what I was saying before in the warning, even if I have got limitations or weaknesses in what I said, your job should be to go past my limitations. Criticize me, sure, that's fine. I would take things from your criticism that are positive, that I can see are supported by good evidence, and learn myself as well. But your job is not to guide me. My job is not to guide you. We are all together, helping each other out, having each other help each other, rebuild, strengthen our connections with Allah through the Risalah that His Rasul Muhammad brought for us. It's not about pointing fingers or pulling each other down, but more importantly, it is also being independent and using our own akal. So I'll repeat this before I go. You cannot blame me, but you can also not blame the traditional alim, traditional mufassir, muhaddis, etc. in front of Allah. The duty to use your mind is yours. You can't outsource it. I will finish with one ayah of the Al-Quran. Allah says, الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب. These who listen to the word, Allah's declaration, then follow the best of it. They are those whom Allah has guided. They are those who possess intellect. I hope we strive to be part of this group, Ulul Albab. Until the next time, Assalamu alaikum.